Welcome back to the Gen 20 podcast. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Marina.
And today we're talking about failure, everyone's favorite F word. No, I'm just kidding. So talking about failure, a couple years ago, last year, I don't know, I lost track of time. It's 2020. It's been, several decades. Basically, in one of our reader surveys, someone said that we don't talk about failure enough on Gen 20. And that I felt was really interesting because I personally feel like most of what we write about is born out of failure.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like things didn't go to plan and here's how we fixed it.
Right. Because like the number one rule of being a blog or article writer is using your own life as fodder. And so 9 times out of 10, I'm like, what am I going to pitch to Nicole? Oh, how this didn't work out for me.
Yeah.
So, but why do you think they want to hear more about failure? Is it because there's so much perfect life being portrayed on social media?
Maybe. I didn't really think about that because I think about it as like they don't want to feel alone in things not going well for us. So I guess, it's all kind of wrapped up into the same explanation.
Yeah. And you and I talk about failure a lot just as in our personal lives, and we have a very different outlook on it, or at least we used to. For me, failure was like the biggest pain point in my life because I was so afraid of failure and made it this huge, huge life or death, black and white. Like you either fail or you succeed. There's nothing in between. Mm-hmm. Whereas you see it as like a gentler response to an action.
Yeah, for me it's kind of just like, okay, we tried this. We didn't get our desired outcome. That's okay. Or we did get our desired outcome. Let's examine why in either case. Or we exceeded our desired outcome. Let's look at why. Let's let this inform our next steps. Like, I don't really see it as, like, failure and success.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm doing what I want to be doing, then I'm succeeding.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point that I think we looked up the definition of failure just for fun, and it's literally Merriam-Webster says failure is a lack of success.
Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you, Miriam.
Are they the same person?
I don't know.
Is it hyphenated?
But the thing to think about is this concept of success. Like now more than ever, we're seeing that success is not like one thing. It's not defined by like one set of rules. It's kind of like you're saying, if you're doing something that makes you happy, you're succeeding. It's not attributed to a dollar amount. It's not attributed to a title. It's literally success is whatever you want it to be. So then failure is kind of the same thing. Like I know for me, I used to equate failure as like a direct indication of my personal being and value. Like, oh, if you fail at this, it means you're a horrible person and no one will like you. Mm-hmm. This is why I'm in therapy, people. but now I see it as like the pivot, right? Where it's like, hey, this is not what I planned. Okay, let's pivot paths because plan A didn't work out for me. So like that must mean I should go to plan B.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this year a lot of people, well, I guess this was coming out in 2021. So I don't know what the world is like to us, future yous. Us is, I don't know.
Dear future selves, please let 21 be better.
Yeah, it's currently October 2020 when we're recording this. So I don't know what's happening in several months. Who knows? But I think this year especially has put a lot of people in a weird position because some people have found a lot of success, meaning like doing what they want to be doing. Mm-hmm. Whereas a lot of other people, things haven't gone to plan and, they've had to pivot. I think it's happened to both of us this year, like, but it's like, for me, I kind of see it as a blessing in a lot of ways because if it wasn't for, my husband being able to work from home, like I wouldn't have been able to start a podcast.
Yeah. And if I hadn't lost my job because of the COVID, because of the pandemic, I would not have been able to start this podcast or any of the other projects we've been working on.
Yeah.
So yeah, with your definition of failure and success, I'm actually hugely thriving because I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing. I'm happier than I've been in a long time. I feel more confident and hopeful, both. about my like future career path, and that feels pretty dang good.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't see it any other way. Like, I mean, it didn't work out the way we thought that it would, but that doesn't mean that where we ended up is like a failure.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel. I don't know.
And I don't know if it's maybe an American trait or just like the millennial trait, but there's like so much fear wrapped up in failure. And I don't know if it's because we were all told we were special and given trophies, or just because we see so much perfection on social media that it's hard not to compare to reality.
Mm-hmm.
But really, we can't, or I mean, you feel how you feel, but we shouldn't be so afraid to fail, because that's the only way we learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's I know for me, I learn more from making mistakes than I do getting it right on the first try.
Yeah. That's an important point, because I mean, what are you learning if things go your way every time? Because I mean, then obviously you already know enough, and you like, why even try? Because
Yeah.
you know everything.
And like in like really simplistic terms, like when your son was learning to walk and he like fell down, he wasn't like, man, I'm a failure, I should stop trying to walk. He was just like, all right.
Yeah, carry me everywhere for the rest of my life.
Yeah, he was like, no, I want to learn to run, so I'm gonna keep trying.
Yeah.
And so like, why do we put so much pressure on this like concept of failure? Because we're not really failing as long as we're continuing to try.
Yeah, I feel like failure and success are just words we should kind of like banish from our vocabularies, because they're really only existing to make us feel bad about ourselves.
Yeah.
I think. And it's like, when you think of failure, do you mostly just compare yourself to other people?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people do as well.
Like I was telling Nicole before we started recording, when I lost my job, I was already quarantining at my mom's house because I wanted to be in a house and not my tiny apartment. And so when I realized that my contract would be terminated because of the pandemic, I decided to give up my apartment because I was already in a different town and I didn't want to be scrambling to find a job to pay for an apartment that I wasn't even in. And so I felt good about that decision. It's a smart financial decision. But then after a couple months of living at home with my mom, I was like, oh my God, I'm almost 30. I'm back home. Like, I'm such a failure. And it like started like hunting me down or haunting me, this thought. And then I was reading an article about how many people our age had to move home because of this crazy year. And I realized, you know what? No one else thinks of me as a failure, or at least no one I know who has like told me. And it's like just me putting that label on it. And it's like, it's not a failure. It's just a pivot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think pivoting is really important. And I think with failure, like, I don't really think of myself in terms of failure or success. Like, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of reasons things don't work out the way we want them to. And like, yes, it could be us getting in our own ways and like self-sabotaging. Like, we're all guilty of that. Like, even me, I do it all the time. But I try to be like aware, where I'm like, why are you getting in your own way? Like, the answer is this. Why don't you just do that? And then like, that's when I have a lot of my epiphanies, and I'm like, oh yeah. Duh, Nicole. Like,
yeah.
Oh, you should have talked to yourself a long time ago.
Wait, now you can listen back to our podcast and you're good.
I know, thank goodness we're recording this.
Yeah, but I think too, it's important to remember that like life isn't linear, and so that like failure and success can't ever exist in life, because it's not a yes or no, forward or backward answer. So why should we be so afraid of it if we can just like, whatever happens is the outcome, and then we just keep going on.
Yeah, I think it's just, I don't know, like, it's really just, for me, it's like, when I think about something, I'm like, this is what I want to happen. But it's like, also, those goals can change, like, even a week or a few months later. Like, even with the pandemic and everything, like, at first I think everyone kind of thought we'd be going back to like normal, quote unquote, life in not so long, but that turned out to absolutely not be the case.
Joke was on us.
I know. I wonder how things are for us back in like the future. Hey, future you, hope you're doing well.
Yeah, can you beam back and just assure us that everything's gonna be okay?
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but like, I think it's just sort of like, I mean, for me, like, I had business goals this year that I'm absolutely not going to reach. And,
Mhm.
like, was it possible that I still could have reached them? I mean,
Maybe.
I don't know, me in an alternate universe, but, like, this is the universe I'm living in.
Mhm.
And there's next year, there's the year after that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've been there before. It doesn't mean I can't be there again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like it's not like this year became more of an opportunity for me to learn and expand my horizons
Mhm.
in more ways than I would have if this didn't happen. I'm not saying this is like a good thing to have happened, but I don't know. I'm very much like a find the positives, frame things positively kind of person, you know? So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at in my life.
I think it's a good place to be. There's kind of only two options. You can frame something positively or frame something negatively, and you get to choose how you frame it. So
Mm-hmm.
I know I've been working on that a lot because I'm, in general, a pretty optimistic person, especially for other people. I can like find the silver lining in the darkest of times.
Yeah.
But when it comes to myself, I'm so hard on myself, and I just, everything is negative. And so now I try to spin it as like, instead of like what if that was the one job and I lost it and everything's ruined, and like, okay, so what if I
If it
use
was the one job, you would have kept it.
right, or like what if this was the job that was holding me back and now that it's gone I'm moving forward, like
Yeah.
trying to find the way to flip it on its head, because
Yeah. And it's in the past and we don't live there.
yeah, we can't control the past, we can't control the future, we can only just be present.
Yeah. I mean, to think about things like in terms of failure, I mean, I guess in terms of things that have gone not so well in my life,
Mm-hmm.
that I don't even know. But I guess I could have wallowed in but did not. But my sophomore year of college, I got like in my 5 classes I was taking, I got a C, 2 D's, and 2 F's. And I mean, that could have been devastating for me. But for me, I was just like, so this is what I had going on in my personal life, X, Y, and Z. This
Mm-hmm.
is what happened in these classes. And it all kind of just like aligned to be a perfect storm of like not doing well.
Yeah.
Like for me, I learned very much like in a certain way, and I still kind of learn in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And none of my classes that semester really supported my learning style, which is, you know, like college, whatever. But like, I could have picked different teachers. I could have recognized this earlier on in the semester when I still could have changed my classes.
Yeah.
But I didn't because of other things going on in my life. And like, yes, it's on my permanent record. But literally no one gives a shit about your college transcript.
It's true.
Nobody. Not
It's
a
true.
single person.
I've never once been asked for my GPA. I've never been asked for my transcript. I guess I was asked for my transcript when I applied to grad school, but that's different. Like,
Mhm.
no employer is going to say, what classes did you take when you were a sophomore in college?
Yeah.
And it's funny you say that. Like, I also had a terrible sophomore year.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read somewhere that often, like, out of the 4 years of college, your sophomore year is actually your hardest.
The
There's like
sophomore slump.
the sophomore slump. But the same thing happened. My fall semester, we only took 4 classes at my school. And I remember I was like still trying to figure out my major. So I was taking kind of random classes that still fulfilled requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And I signed up for a business class because I liked the idea of business, but it was so dull. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to thrive in this. So I dropped out of it like the first ad drop week and went to take a chemistry class so that I could fulfill my lab science requirement.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm good at baking, I'm good at following directions, I'm not terrible at math. And my
Potions
roommate
class, you would have thrived.
I would have thrived in potions. Yeah, and my roommate was a chem major, so I was like, I will be fine.
Yeah.
And it was a class specifically designed for non-science majors. And guys, it was so hard. It was 8 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
I was out already.
And I had an A in the lab because, again, I'm good at following directions and can like run experiments.
Mm-hmm.
But I just couldn't, like, science isn't my jam. I don't have that kind of brain for learning. And so I kept failing my tests, and I tried so hard to not fail, split infinitive. I tried so hard not to fail my chem class that I started slipping in my other 2 like classes. 3 classes. And so I ended up dropping it because I was just like, I can't do this.
You're taking my life over.
And I remember I was like standing in our church I was standing in the campus church because it was raining and it was like halfway to my dorm from the library, and I was calling my dad crying like, I'm failing chemistry, what do I do? And he was like, well, do you still have the add drop period? You can drop out and you can figure it out this summer. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, there's a solution. Okay. And like, because for me, it was like, oh my God, you're failing. This means you're a terrible person. It means you're dumb. And for my dad, he was just like, nope, we can move on to plan B. Like, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's an important reminder 10 years later that, like, yeah, there's always plan B.
Yeah.
And, like, we can't live in we aren't, like, living and dying by that one decision we make.
Plan A is not the only plan. That's why there's 25 other letters.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, infinite numbers. Hello.
Exactly, yeah.
There's a higher power watching out for us, whoever that might be.
Steve Jobs.
For you. Yeah, it's Steve Jobs for us.
For
I don't
us.
know who it is for you, but, whoever that is.
Yeah, and so I think, too, with age and experience comes the realization and, like, redefinition of the term failure. So when I was 20, failure was very much like getting good grades and finding a job after college. And now at almost 30, failure means like choosing to be in a life that I'm unhappy. Mm-hmm. And that's, to me, failure. Mm-hmm. And everything else is success.
I feel like you've come a long way from the very beginning of this episode.
I did. Welcome to my spiritual journey in the last 16 minutes.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. I just don't really think of things in terms of, like, I failed and I've succeeded. Like, I mean, I've done a lot of things over the course of my career that, like, could have worked out better, could have, I don't know, achieved a different result, but they didn't, and that's fine. Like, I learned things on my journey in my career path. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, not all those things inform what I do now in my life, but, like, I think it just works out the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. And, like, your chemistry class made me think of my biology classes. Because at my school, they gave a BA in psychology, where it's typically a BS, but you have to, like, earn a BS separately by taking, like, 5 biology classes off this list. And I do not have an aptitude for those things. Not that, like, I couldn't if I applied myself, but I just don't want to. I think it's just something I mean, I know the basics, the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell, that kind of thing. No, I'm just kidding. I know a little more than that. But for me, I was like, look, if I get an A in the lab, which is easy, mostly writing, got that down, like, on the test, I only have to get X amount of questions right. So I would, like, study just enough so that I felt confident, just enough that I would reach X number of questions.
Yeah.
And I did. I was like, well, shoot, I got a 70, that's why I passed. And that's all I wanted to do.
You know, it's funny because if I think back to, like, I don't take tests well. I don't really, like, I tried to study and I don't know. But my major in college and then what I got my graduate degree in, like, I never took tests. Mm-hmm. My exams were all essays. Like, I majored in French. I would write essays on literature in French.
Yeah.
And I could do that. I mean, it was hard, but, like, I would be happy to do that. But if you sat me down with multiple choice tests and short answers, I would just blank.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of similar. Like, in one of my psych classes, my friend and I took the class together, and it's, like, a pretty big, like, lecture, probably, like, 100 people, if not more. And they passed out the exams, right? We're sitting there. I'm looking at this test, like, I have no freaking clue what any of these things are. I'm like, did I read the wrong textbook? Like,
am I in the right class?
So I'm, like, checking my watch, like, is this, like, the correct place and time? Like, are we in the wrong room? But instead of me being like, hey, I don't know if this is the right test, I just started taking and, like, so it was me and my friend. We looked at each other like, what the hell? I've never heard of this study that they're referencing in my life. Like, I'm just like, I don't know. This girl in the back of the lecture hall raises her hand and she's like, hey, I think this is the wrong test. And it was me, my friend, and her who had the wrong exam.
That's hilarious.
But me and my friend were sitting there just like about to take the test.
Like, well, I guess we just don't know this information.
Like, what would they have done when they graded it? They would have been like, were you gonna say something?
Y'all are dumb. That's what they would have said.
They would have been like, wow, you deserve the grade you got.
But I think it's just like, what a, like, that girl, thank God for her, you know, and
I know.
it's like learning to identify like what's working for you and what's not, and like the wrong test not working for you. That's not a good measure.
Yeah, and it's like you kind of need to speak up for yourself and like advocate for yourself when you know things like aren't going the desired way.
Yeah.
You know, like I obviously did not desire to take the wrong test, but I was just gonna sit there and take it.
Right. Well, and it's like I did a career intensive at the beginning of 2020 with our friend and my career coach, Serena, who we've had on the podcast in the last season. And until I worked with her, I think I would have just I swear I speak English. I would have just continued to take shitty jobs that I was unhappy in because I thought that's like all that was available to me. And now it's like, oh no, that's not how you succeed in your career. It's like,
it's a whole new world.
It's a whole new world. Yeah. But it was like until I learned to say no and like advocate otherwise, I would have just kept failing myself because I was doing what I thought was right.
Yeah.
And that's no good.
Now you learned the pivot. The
pivot. And I hope you all know that every time I say that word, I do picture Ross from Friends shouting pivot.
I know, that's all I can think of.
So if you know, you know.
Yeah.
There you go.
Cue the GIF right now. The GIF. Do you say GIF or GIF?
I say GIF.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
No wonder we're friends.
Well,
no offense to you GIF sayers.
The only GIF you should be saying is Jif peanut butter because it's the superior peanut butter. Anyway, this has been another episode of the Gen 20 podcast. We're so glad to have you back. I hope you enjoyed it. And we'd love for you to leave us a review and rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you find us. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.